Herzlich willkommen beim 37. DOK.fest München. A very warm welcome to the 37th DOK.fest Munich. My name's Daniel Lang and I'm going to be your host for this talk today. After 2 years of having our online program, we've got a dual program this year, so at the cinema and at home. So from May 9th, you can watch most of the films online. Today, I'm talking to the director Neasa Chianáin, I hope I said that correctly, about her film Young Plato in our section Best of Fests, and it's running here as the German premiere. Hello, Neasa.
Hello, lovely to be here with you.
Lovely to have you
here. Even if it's virtual.
First question first, how did you find this amazing protagonist, this amazing story, this amazing place?
Well, that was thanks to my co-director, Kevin McArevey, who is a Belfast filmmaker. And a friend of his told him about it, about Kevin and the school. And Declan and I had worked together before. He worked as an editor in some of my earlier projects. And he asked me if I was interested in getting involved because he had seen he knew I was an observational filmmaker and that, you know, we had made School Life and he had seen that and he really liked that. So that's how the whole journey started and us meeting Kevin McArevey.
Was it easy to convince Kevin to let you film at the school? And how did you earn his trust?
Yeah, Kevin, I think he was up for it. Like, I think we just hit it off when we met, and he was up for it. It took a little while then to convince the board and and then eventually the staff, and then eventually the parents. I mean, it's a big thing for a school to allow a camera crew, you know, full access and to go in there. So. So we were really, really grateful. I mean, we had School Life as a template to show him and to explain to him what it would involve, because it's very hard for somebody to wrap their head around observational filmmaking and what that means, because it requires a huge amount of time on their part that we're going to be knocking around the school for quite some time, and a huge amount of trust. So we really worked on keeping the dialogue continuously open. You know, like if there was any problem, we wanted them to come to us immediately and let us know about it so that we could discuss it. And so I think that's, you know, it was kind of a keeping an open door on both sides all the time, and constantly checking in with each other and making sure everything was okay. And really, it was a fantastic experience. We really enjoyed our time. I mean, I certainly enjoyed my time in Ardoyne. I didn't know it beforehand, and it was just such a privilege to meet the people of Ardoyne and to see how how committed they were to changing the narratives for their children.
And how long did you actually spend in the community, in the school? Like, how long did filming take place?
Yeah, well, we did. For the development period, we went in for a couple of weeks where we got to know a few of the teachers and stuff, and then so that would have been like, say, the springtime, and then we intended to film for one academic year, so that was that September 19, because COVID happened. What was it? The year that COVID happened?
20.
That was 20, yeah. So exactly. So we started September 19, and then COVID happened. So then we had to stop everything in March of 2020. And so we lost a whole term. So then we went back the following year of September 20, and we filmed until Christmas intensively, and then just a few pickups in 2021. So that was it. And then, yeah, that was it. So we spent about, like, I knew that this type of thing, it requires a lot of time, and it requires, you have to become part of the furniture, and you cannot be a distraction in the teachers' lives or in the pupils' lives. So they have to get really used to having you around. So right from the get-go, I'd asked Kevin, can we have a room in the school where we can sort of set up as an office, keep our equipment, and where we can hang out when we're not necessarily filming, and we can just get on with stuff. So he very kindly gave us that. So we would have spent a minimum of 3 days a week at the school every week.
And did the kids, like you said, you needed to become part of the furniture to make your observational film. Did that take long for the kids to basically ignore you and say, oh yeah, it's just the film team?
Yeah, it did. It took some more longer than others. Like, you know, the little ones were more excitable and they're like, oh, it's the film crew, you know, so they were always got excited. But you just kind of, you wore them down, really, by just being around a lot. And, you know, we showed up to all the obvious things that, you know, the school concerts and all those kind of things as well, knowing that there wasn't really a story there necessarily for us, but it was really important for us to be visible to all the different kids in the school. And the other thing that you know that like we decided was that we would never let a child know if we were necessarily interested in them either, you know. So I tried to be really democratic about who we filmed with, and even you know, always filming with somebody, even if you knew that, you know, that really wasn't going to go anywhere, because I didn't want any child to get a sense that, you know, they were going to be a star, or they were, you know, a point of interest for us, because then that would change their behavior. So so yes, so really I think it probably just took the first term for them to settle down, and then we were just, you know, we were just there. You know, we were boring by that stage.
What drives the headmaster? Like you show in your film, he has like this physicality also, and sort of there is an undercurrent somewhere that he might have experienced violence in his life. Is that something that drives him, or like what drives him?
Yeah.
What drives him to be this like larger than life superhuman, basically, or like a, how do I say, like a role model, basically?
Yeah. Well, his past really, like Kevin grew up not in Ardoyne, but in an area very similar to Ardoyne in North Belfast. And his mum would have been, like when Kevin was 6 months old, their house was being burnt out, and she had to run from their house with him as a 6-month-old baby. So his family would have been involved in the Troubles. And so he grew up around violence because it was a necessity to survive in that kind of environment. You had to be tough. You had to put it out there. Nobody mess with me, because, you know, you're not going to be the winner in this. And so he would have pretty much, I mean, he always says that he never instigated a fight, but he couldn't stand injustice, and he was always get involved in a fight physically. And he did do damage to some people, and he's not proud of it. I mean, it hurts him. His past absolutely hurts him. And he when he discovered philosophy, I think, and he realized that he was not in control of his emotions. He'd never had a drink problem per se, like he wasn't an alcoholic, but he realized that he was not in control of his emotions when he did have a drink. So he gave up drink completely. And he said after that happened and he found philosophy, like he just really found a direction in life. And he was absolutely determined to, you know, to change the narratives of his community's lives. Within his own family, there would have been problems with, you know, with one of his siblings would have battled with drug addiction. And I mean, all these were symptoms of community suffering, like, you know, from intergenerational trauma, and, you know, all the social problems that happen after a war, essentially. So yes, so Kevin was like, he's a man on a mission, and he wants to change things, you know.
In the film, you get, like, within the school, you get this really strong sense of community, but also, like, outside the school, you get this very sort of, they're very close knit, I think. Yeah. Maybe you could elaborate on that a bit more.
Yeah, no, it is. I mean, like, you see, when the peace agreement happened in 1998, a lot of money flowed into Northern Ireland, but it didn't because where Ardoyne is, it's like a Catholic enclave. So it's a Catholic enclave, and it's completely surrounded by unionist communities, basically. And so they're quite isolated where they are. So you can definitely see huge improvements on West Belfast, and there they have Irish language schools, they have great community centre, cultural centres, money flowed in that direction. Ardoyne, like North Belfast, it's like nothing ever happened there. It's just they were just left to fend for themselves. And I think the community there realized that nobody was going to do it for them. They had to do it for themselves. So there is a real sense of vocation amongst people there, and that they just do it for themselves. And they are a very, very tight-knit community, and like people didn't really move out of Ardoyne, they just kind of move up a couple of doors, so it is a community that's bursting at the seams, because there's no room for expansion because of the geography of the place. There's nowhere to expand to. So yeah, they are very, very tight, and they have been left to themselves, and they've had to fend for themselves, basically. And that kind of spills over into the school as well. Like Kevin, they didn't wait around for. I mean, they have a high proportion of children with autism, like a very high proportion of children with autism in that school. And, they didn't wait around to be given the money to build a sensory room and a place where children could just go to and get time out. They just went ahead and did it. And that's just how they operate, because otherwise they just, they'd be waiting forever. So.
I think the film sort of hits a nerve, basically. Also, with the current situation that's just happening now, Brexit, etc. Do you see a danger of basically the troubles re-emerging, or is the danger really palpable at the moment? Also with the local elections having gone on, etc. Yeah.
Well, now at the time, just when we were finishing filming when we just finished editing, it was the summer of 2021, and tensions had started to build up again over the Brexit issue and the border that they were going to put down the Irish Sea. And there was a huge amount of protest there from the unionist community. There were 11-year-olds out on the street rioting for the border. Obviously they were being told to go out there and start rioting on the streets. And then when that didn't get massive media attention, they were moved to the peace walls, and they were trying to engage the other side in the riots. And then Prince Philip died. So then that kind of stopped it, because obviously it wouldn't have been a good thing to be seen doing. But there are tensions. And now I was told, and I think by a pretty reliable source, that there are tensions building, not necessarily because of the border and the Irish Sea, but more what was happening was the drug barons, they were finding it much more difficult to move their products around. And this is what, and then, they talk to whoever the heads in the community, or in the dissidents, basically. And then they rile up the kids, and they get the kids out, protesting against, the Irish, the thing in the Irish Sea. So there are all these other undercurrents with different agendas happening there. And it is just scratch the surface, and it's there. I don't know yes, look, the elections the recent elections there are totally changing the landscape now. So the DUP are kind of, they're kind of losing, they may not be able to call the shots as much as they used to be able to call the shots. So hopefully there's more, because the people themselves, they're battling with all the same issues of high inflation, like high food costs, living costs spiraling out of control. Like they want a government, they want an infrastructure. They want to get back to just real living. And this border thing is not as as crucial to them as just like daily life.
And do you think that the work, the school, like Kevin and the staff, because it is not only him, I think it's like the whole school community, the work they are doing, is that making a real difference in your eyes? Like for these kids and for the community?
Oh, yeah, without a shadow of a doubt. I mean, like, first, this is 75% of the children in the school are relying on free school meals. Like, it's the free school meal system. So in that kind of community, the academic performance that these kids do, they have to sit this like really archaic exam called the 11 plus, when at 11, and that decides what kind of school they go into for their secondary school, which seems like a really, really unfair system. They've done away with it in the UK, but it still exists in Northern Ireland. And the children there, 60% of their children manage to get into like the more academic schools, which is unheard of for a school from that kind of community dealing with all of those social issues that are thrown at them. So absolutely, what Kevin and the staff are doing there, I mean, it's absolutely having a huge effect. And like, since making the film and showing it around in different places in the community, like we had a similar release in Belfast and in Derry and all that, the amount of people who came out of the woodwork, talking about what the school had meant to them in their past and what it had done for them. And there's a huge amount of love and pride around what that school has achieved and how it has enabled their children to be able to navigate their way. Well, it's given them more tools than normal to be able to navigate their way through the difficulties, that will face them when they become teenagers. I mean, the suicide rates in Belfast amongst teenagers is incredibly high. And the year that we were filming there like that, we have that one scene of Declan Cole, who died, who had been an ex-student. There were 5 kids, between the ages of 22 and 11, who had tried to commit suicide that Christmas when we came back to film. 5 in a small community. Like, it's crazy. So yes, I think this work that the school here are doing, they are turning out confident, articulate kids who are not afraid to say what they think. And I think that's a very, very powerful tool to be able to walk through life.
I feel that Kevin is on a mission. Also, when talking to the parents, for example, he's got his booklet. Do the parents do they take it on board, like his teaching, basically?
Yeah, I think, look, you can't. I mean, there's 430 kids in that school, so I'm sure not every single parent takes it on board, but in general, the parents do take it on board. In fact, when Kevin started bringing philosophy into that school, the parents came to him and said, "Listen, like, you got to do something for us here, because we're being left behind. Like, we can't answer. Our kids are coming home with these questions and we don't know what to say." So what he did was he set up philosophy classes for them on Wednesday nights, where a different teacher comes in and does philosophy with them and teaches them about philosophy. Now, it's mainly the women who attend, but that's fantastic. That is really, really great. And the parents, maybe they don't actually, maybe some of them don't actually, they don't, know that it's philosophy, but they know that the devices that Kevin uses, like, the philosophy board, the thing outside his office where the children come. They're sent to the headmaster's office, and usually that's like, oh my God, it's going to be awful punishment. But here they're sent to this board, and they have to, and I saw them over and over again, hysterical children coming to the board, and crying and all upset after just having had a fight out on the playground, and then they had to answer these questions by themselves, like, what happened, what should have happened, Where do we go from here? So the two injured parties have to negotiate these questions, between each other. They have to decide, is this really what happened? Like, are you okay? This is how it unfolded, blah, blah, blah. By the time they go through that process, the fight is forgotten. They're on to talking about football or whatever game they're going to play that night, on their devices when they go home. And like, it's resolved and it's over. And and I've saw like one of the children saying, God, I don't even know why I'm fighting with you. You're my best friend. Why am I fighting? Like, that whole process is teaching them something. I mean, we could all do with a philosophy board in our lives, and so I think the parents are seeing that in their children. They're seeing them managing their emotions. So maybe they don't know it as philosophy, but they're seeing the results come out in different ways in how it helps them change their behavior and manage their emotions and just become, better human beings.
I love there's one scene where one of the children has to go to the philosophy board, and he sort of says, "Oh, philosophy board," and he sort of knowingly says, "Yeah, I have to go," and it's just so funny. Also, like, sort of this sort of little kid that seems really wise in that moment.
Yeah. It's better than detention.
Yeah. How did the kids react to the film when watching the film? What did they see, and how did they see like their interactions?
Yeah, I think they were they were immensely proud. Like, Jean-Marie did a lot of work with them beforehand, before the film came out. Like, the main characters, she talked to them about, like, well, what do you think is in the film, and how do you feel about this, and how do you feel about the fact that you're crying and all that kind of thing. And they were all like, yeah, I know, but then I moved on and I did this and da, 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 da. So like, they totally got it. Like, they totally got their own journey. So by the time they saw the film, I mean, they were like little rock stars, strutting around their own neighborhood. And they got a lot of immediate attention, and they did their their little interviews, and they talked about how philosophy was like, Mr. McArevey was the greatest philosopher around, and and I think they really enjoyed it, and they were just incredibly proud of themselves, their school, and that everyone was interested in what they were doing as well. And the same with the parents. I think the parents were really proud of their boys, and seeing how they progressed.
Good. So generally, like, the film was accepted in the community, and sort of.
Oh my God, accepted. And like, it went into the theaters, and every week it was like, it's still there. They're going to run it for another week. They're going to run it for another week. They're going to run it for another week. So that was fantastic. Like, we hadn't expected that, but like, it was, I think there's not many positive stories that come out of Ardoyne. And I think this was really something that, I mean, because they're kind of, they have, busloads of tourists arrive, to see the murals, to see where the trouble started, to see all that kind of thing. So now they have another narrative, and I think that's how they see it. This is a really positive narrative coming out of our community, and we're the ones who are making this happen. So I think that's, it gave a good lift to the area.
Fantastic. Thank you very, very much for this really, really heartwarming and fantastic film. Thank you for talking to us.
Oh, my pleasure. I'm sorry I can't be there, but thank you.
So the film Young Plato is nominated for the Kino Audience Award, and if you like the film, you can vote for it. It is sponsored by BR and Dreisat, and goodbye to you, and hopefully see you here in Munich with your next film.
Oh, thanks a million. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.